everyone, and welcome to Afternoon Tea. My name is Brittany. So sorry we didn't get to meet last week, but as I've shared, I think most places, anyways, my grandmother passed away, so I was unable to really make the live stream last week. There was just a lot going on. I do apologize for not letting people know earlier, but we are back this week, and so much to talk about. So we do obviously have Meghan Markle's release. I say Meghan Markle and not Prince Harry because I don't think Prince Harry had anything to do with anything. The Girl Scouts movie, which is why actually my little light up screen back there is green. But I did a whole video review, guys, because yesterday I did go see the movie in theaters. And so I was able to do that. So I can give you guys an actual assessment of the film. And so I will do that. So far my current subtitle is Cookie Bore because it was boring, as pretty much every Harry and Meghan project is. The girls were cute, but that's about as much as I could say. And I also will have to say I liked the Girl Scouts less after watching the movie. So I don't know if it really accomplished anything it set out to do, but that's my assessment. And then we do also have the 60 Minutes piece about Prince Harry, which is quite interesting. Just going to say, yeah, they had no case. They never had a case. And then they went forward with it anyways. And now everybody looks stupid. So that was been a really, really fascinating bit. I just got finished watching that. So we'll go over that. And then we have the Meghan Markle of academia, Dr. Jason Arday. I should say doctor in quotes, because not sure how much of a doctor he is, to be honest. And it's been really interesting to see because it very much, I think, you can find echoes of Meghan Markle's story in his. And it's one of those things where he was a guy who got very far in life, basically by weaponizing race. That's what he did. That's just basic bare bones what he did. But I feel like there's a lot of Meghan Markle from the perspective, not only race, but also freedom of journalism. There's actually a huge journalism aspect to this case, which I find really fascinating. So hopefully you guys do as well, because I was like, wow. Oh, okay. We'll do that because I really find something like that very, very interesting as somebody who's spent time in academia myself. And then we also have, what was my last thing? Oh, Harry and Meghan's hypocrisy about an AI system that can produce inappropriate images of children. Yes, that is of course wrong. But also Meghan Markle should know that posting your daughter in a swimsuit on social media attracts the perverts. It does. Why are you doing that? You're a hypocrite. So we are going to talk about this. I feel like there was something else today that could have been interesting too. I thought about it and then I lost it. So we will have a couple of things, obviously other things that people will be sharing that probably will devolve into a hopefully incredible discussion. So guys, let's go ahead and get into it and welcome. Thank you guys so much again for joining. And we do have really quick here. Angela Dunn, who's been a member for 33 months, says, oh yeah, Martha Stewart. Calling Martha Stewart a liar will backfire on Meghan. Yes, Meghan Markle's inability. Maybe we'll start with this just real quick since people are still filing in. Meghan Markle's inability to let something go is insane, and to have to clap back at every story, because this is the thing. And it's actually currently, guys, right now, I don't know how organic this is or not. And of course, there's a huge banner on the People magazine website at the moment. But the top story, Martha Stewart's account of dinner party conversation with Meghan Markle is simply untrue, source said. Why do we need this article? why in the world do we need this particular piece? But it's just basically said, after Martha Stewart said in a People magazine interview, Meghan Markle had just gotten back from the palace and was talking about her recent trip to Europe. Somebody else comes. Let's see. Let me get to the other quote here, because they're using Stewart's quotes. But okay, where's the other quotes? Okay. So another person, a source, i.e. Meghan Markle, let's be honest, said, I sat next to Meghan at the dinner party, and this account of what happened is simply untrue. I love it how the person was actually at the dinner party, i.e. Meghan. Most likely, Meghan didn't talk about her European vacation other than to say the family had a great time. Meghan has always been a fan of Martha's and enjoyed getting to meet her briefly at the dinner. So this inability to let something go and slap back at any negative story, this is part of what the royal family was trying to dissuade her against because, and then this goes into the academia story as well, people can say what they want. If they don't like you, if they don't like what you did, if they have an interpretation of what you did, you can't control that. This is Meghan Markle has been her problem the entire time she has been in the public eye, is that Meghan Markle cannot seem to let things go and has this incessant need for control. And the problem is that if you are in the public eye, you do not have full control over what people say about you. You can never can. Meghan Markle had a modicum of that when she was a no-name actress and nobody gave a crap. She could exert a tremendous amount of control over her image because nobody double checked, nobody cared. So she could do that. But now that's just not the case. And so if Martha Stewart wants to say, hey, she was talking about her European vacation, well, to Martha Stewart, she was talking about her European vacation. So you know what? You don't have to respond to that. And nobody would be surprised if you did talk. So it's just nothing there, I think, actually is beneficial to Meghan to have this incessant need to respond to every negative story, every negative comment, and just try to deflect everything bad. You're just never going to do it. It's always going to be bad. And you can also obviously tell Meghan Markle is quite sensitive. She doesn't want to be seen as talking about Europe, even though I'm sure she probably did. She does not want to be seen as breaking the royal family's confidence because her and Harry desperately need to return to the fold in one way or another. And so she has to clap back. She has to constantly clap back and try to correct things. And at some point, it just gets excessive. But this is what she always wanted, just like constantly correcting. And you just got to accept the fact that not everything is going to go your way. That's the reality of public life, is not everything's going to go your way. You have to be accepting of that, and you have to be able to kind of integrate your life into something that's a bit better and understand your role in the world is just as a public figure. You're just not going to get everything you want at all. And Meghan Markle, maybe she wants Martha Stewart's approval or something. I don't know, but this whole dinner party fiasco thing, like the more Meghan Markle tries to address it, I think the worse it gets. And what Harry and Meghan don't understand as well is that when you respond to something, you actually continue the news cycle. If you let something go, the news dies. I have been astonished. I should actually calculate, but the news moves so fast and I'm on my own. I don't have the wherewithal to track this all the way I should. But the amount of times a story about Harry and Meghan is starting to die and they need to respond to it, which continues and grows the story, it amazes me. It's like, just let it go, let it die. And then people forget and move on. But when you feel the need to respond, when you perpetuate the story, it gives it more legs. And that's just as a public figure. If the image of something is not something you want to continue, you have to let it go. You just have to give it up to the world and just understand that not everybody's going to like you. Not everybody's going to respect you. Not everybody's going to believe you. Some people are, some people aren't. And Martha Stewart definitely isn't backing down. And she was right. Meghan Markle going from the balcony of Buckingham Palace to the doldrums of Montecito is not impressive. Nor does it play well to people. Because people are wondering, why the heck did you do that? And Martha Stewart, I felt like, gave a very much a recollections may vary response. And I don't think she was super impressed with Meghan. I don't think she's been impressed with Meghan. And I think that's a lot of people. But again, it's important to be clear when it comes to Hollywood, guys. Because people are like, well, they're not saying X, Y, Z. Hollywood people don't. Until it becomes so public you can't avoid it. I mean, how many people praised Harvey Weinstein to the ether, all knowing what he was doing behind the scenes? Like, again, I had heard about the Harvey Weinstein rulers on a royal forum in regard to Cresta Bonus and a film she had with him. The Harvey Weinstein stuff had been out for a long, long time. And Meryl Streep went up there on the stage and still called him God. So, you know what? All these people lie through their teeth. That is what they do. I don't think Martha Stewart is like that. I don't think she cares. But there are a lot of people who just lie through their teeth and keep somebody close in case they're useful, which is why Meghan is still somewhat peripherally involved in Hollywood. Not because I think anybody is actually expecting anything from her. I don't think they are. But because she might one day be useful. Isn't that just sad that they're just like, well, maybe she'll do something and maybe it'll be worth it. But right now we're just like, just stay over here, honey. That's kind of the effect we get. But Martha Stewart is like that. We need to have this response to Martha Stewart. It's just insane. It's just insane, guys. Yeah. Tea for everyone says, I agree. Martha's probably chuckling at Megan's childish nonsense. She is. She is. And Asma says, the source, or sorry, Becky says the source. Who was the source? People magazine. Yeah, probably Megan or a friend of Megan's. Like, there's just no other person who it could have been. Like, they were literally sat next to Megan at the party. I mean, I would still not be sure. I would still not argue that it's not Megan actually saying that about Megan and her PR people. Again, they have to do this constantly. It's the only way they can kind of start to buffer themselves, like, and try to, again, spin the narrative in a way. I don't know. But Harry and Meghan's PR has always been such a train wreck. I mean, it's so unprofessional. It really is. It's kind of sad and pathetic because it doesn't need to be that bad. But it is. But it is. There are so many better ways to run your PR operation than how Harry and Meghan do it, which is basically just to talk about everything. It's just incessant and annoying. So anyways, guys, just thought we could, as people are rolling in here, that we could maybe start with a little bit of that, because next we will have one case here, which I think it'll take us a little bit to get through. I don't think terrible, to be honest, because we're only doing, it's a 20-minute segment. We'll start at segment or minute 8. But I just thought it would be really, really cool to go through the 60 minutes piece about Harry's court case and just how incredibly, insanely stupid it was. It was a stupid case brought by people with an agenda, not fact. And because of that, Harry helped other people lose millions upon millions of dollars, and including himself. And it has been reported that I think Elton John and Harry were going to split the whole cost of the court case. Now, Elton John has that level of money. I'm still not convinced Harry and Meghan do. And I do want to say something real quick here as well, because I know some people started talking about this, and I did as well. I need to update on X too. But when it comes to Harry and Meghan's kitchen, a lot of people pointed out that one of the cabinets looks like it had been painted recently or restained or whatever. It's actually old. They did that before they first moved in. So they haven't done any other changes that we've seen. I just don't think people picked up on it before. But the cabinets, they're one particular set of cabinets have been, if Harry and Meghan did it properly, sanded down and repainted, not stained. It looks like white paint. Now, Harry and Meghan could be cheap enough to utilize and just paint over the cabinets. They could be. But Harry and Meghan, especially if they've allegedly bought this house in Portugal and have not put really much money into their Montecito house, I think is a major mistake, because the Montecito house, they could make a lot of money off of it, but I think if they continue to not really renovate or update it, and it basically goes on the market, let's say in the next couple of years, is still looking basically the same as it did when it was on the market and languished for years upon years, they're going to really struggle to sell it. Now, Harry and Meghan being attached to it could increase the value, but I just don't think that much. I don't know who would be like that interested in the house. I mean, there would be a couple people, let's be honest, but it would be potentially a teardown. If it's bad enough and the people hate it enough, it could potentially be a teardown. Even if it's a $60 million mansion, it could be a $20, $30, $40, $50 million mansion if it was all updated and everything, but they haven't put any money into it. Instead, they're stupidly putting money into something else. And that's just not really all that smart, because the California market, I mean, it's dipping already, to be honest, because people are moving out of California. In that range, it's still pretty good. Portugal might be slightly better, but honestly, it's just not a great thing. So let's go ahead and take a look at this video. So this is 60 Minutes Australia, which has done some really interesting pieces. They're also the ones who interviewed Jason Knaff about Catherine and William. And we actually went through that on the Crown Report live stream like a year or so ago. And so they get some really good stuff, to be quite honest. And I think this is an interesting piece talking about how incredibly, insanely stupid this case was, and how definitely Harry and his team backed the wrong horse when it came to Gavin Burrows, because he had not only do I think he's sleazy, Gavin Burrows, but I don't think he had any desire to help Harry or anybody else in this case. So let's go ahead and take a look. So we're starting at minute 8, and I just want to hear just this first little bit, and we go in about 15-second increments, and I know not everybody likes that, but I do it for copyright reasons. When I stick to that measurement, I don't really have any issues with copyright, and copyright can be really challenging on a channel. So that's what we do. So sorry, I know not everybody loves it, but here we go.
Maybe they were, who knows? But Prince Harry and his friends did not have the evidence.
So I did just want to start off with this. Harry and his friends didn't have the evidence. So they brought this case and didn't have the evidence. That's just so critical. Yeah. So yes, the press could have gathered that information illegally, but you have to have evidence to prove it. And Harry and his team had none. Again, your evidence can't be, well, I told 5 friends, and these 5 friends, they wouldn't tell anybody. Right. So like it had to be illegally gathered. That's not how this works. And so I think this is a great little segment to start out on, at least that little bit, because it's just, I want to specify there was no case here. There was no case. And as we learn, kind of Harry and his lawyers had to know that at some point.
Prince Harry's beef with the Daily Mail stems back more than 20 years, from when he and girlfriend at the time, Chelsea Davy, were at the centre of the paper's unwanted attention.
So definitely Chelsea and Harry did have a lot of press attention on them, and it was damaging for sure. So, oh, and hey, Mama Otter. So in this particular case, it's obviously intrusive. It's obviously annoying, I'm sure, but you have to have actual evidence here. And I think Harry blames the press for making Chelsea leave, but I don't think Chelsea left because of the press. I think Chelsea left because she couldn't handle how Harry reacted to the press, which was so unstable that it was like he just couldn't do it.
The prince accused the paper of hiring a PI to get their flight details and seat numbers in order to get a reporter onto their plane to shadow the pair and write a story about them.
So it is important to know that this was definitely happening in the early 2000s, much more than is happening now. It was just a very different time back then.
The allegation is, to get the information, the PI used illegal blagging, which is securing information by lying, often pretending to be someone they're not.
I mean, I feel like sometimes the press does that. And sometimes it is in the vested interest of other people to actually continue something like that. So, and as we get into with this Jason Arday story, the press does have a responsibility to investigate powerful people. And if there are things wrong or if there's misinformation in the record, they have the right and I believe the responsibility to try to address it.
Did you ever participate in blagging?
I didn't really have to. I know people that did. And of course, that's a pretty broad, is quite a broad thing.
So this is Gavin Burrows, guys. This is the guy who's Harry's entire case rested on. Everything about the case Harry brought against the Daily Mail rested on Gavin Burrows. Which you can obviously see was not a good idea.
Because...
Did you get information by being deceptive?
Of course, if you're a detective, of course.
Gavin Burrows is the private eye Prince Harry believed blagged the airline to get the story of he and Chelsea for the Daily Mail.
So again, this is the key guy in the case. He's also the one, if you've been following the case, who kind of rescinded and stepped back and go, no, I'm not testifying. If I am, it has to be, nobody can know where I am. I don't want the lawyers to know where I am, all these sorts of things. And there's some aspects of it that I think are true, but I think as well, he's just a slimy character, I think.
All these years later, it was Gavin's insider knowledge of working for the paper and his willingness to turn whistleblower that the prince relied on to sue the newspaper group.
So everything in that case rested on Gavin Burrows. And even as a lawyer, you should never rest your entire case on one piece of evidence. And especially testimony. Testimony can vary widely. Memories can shift and fade. Something that was clear one year can be different another year. And sometimes people are like, oh, I said that, but I didn't want to. So even most murder cases, even if they have like a really solid eyewitness evidence, they will want to back up that eyewitness evidence with a bunch of circumstantial or direct evidence to help close the case, because you just don't want to go, well, if I just put this one person up on the stand, that's all that matters. I'm going to win my case. That's just weak sauce when it comes to a legal defense.
Gavin's candour regarding criminal behaviour was remarkable, as he told the BBC 5 years ago.
In 2004, Prince Harry started dating a young woman called Chelsea Davy.
Yes, right.
So this is from I keep saying so as I start. This is from the BBC interview, and I think it's a one, or maybe it was ITV, because there was an interview Harry participated in, and this might be connected to that, but it's been a little bit.
Did that open up a lucrative new avenue for you?
So.
And I want to remind you guys, Meghan Markle never experienced anything like Chelsea Davy did, because Meghan Markle's experience within the spotlight when she entered into the royal household was just incredibly different. The time was different. Yet Harry and Meghan are still acting like it's the early 2000s when Chelsea was dating Harry, and it's just not anymore. The paparazzi is just not the same. It just doesn't exist in the same way that it did. Does it still exist? Yes. Are they as incessant and as intrusive as they used to be? Absolutely not.
There was a lot of voicemail hacking going on. There was a lot of surveillance went on Chelsea Davy, on her phones, on the comms.
That's what Gavin had to say then. Confoundingly today, he has a different take.
This different take is basically like, and you can actually see it in the interview, he's just kind of being general. He's not specifically saying like, yeah, they were trying to do that, but doesn't say this is what I was doing, which is how he's able to wiggle his way out of it.
Did you blag to find out the specific flight details of Chelsea Davy?
No.
For the Daily Mail?
No.
And so her life became an object of obsession for you guys.
I do feel so sorry for Chelsea. I think she is perfectly happy to be living on an island in the Pacific where she is doing her clothing, her jewelry line, and being away from the freak show that is Prince Harry. I'm sure she's like thanking her lucky stars. She has this gorgeous husband, 3 children, and she's away from this mess. And of course, again, this did not exist for Meghan Markle. This did not. But Meghan Markle basically claims to be a Chelsea Davy type figure, and she's just not.
As well.
Yeah, medical records, had she had an abortion, sexual diseases, ex-boyfriends, vet them, check them, education.
You talked about the need to, find any dirt on her, find out if she'd had an abortion, any dirt.
It's just so skeevy, isn't it? This is a part of journalism I don't like. It's just skeevy and ugh.
On ex-boyfriends.
Because that's the normal brief.
So you were just making it up, like you could have put anyone.
No, I was basically describing that's what they would do.
But that's not what you did.
No, I wasn't working for the press then.
Okay.
No, I was just giving my expert opinion.
So what?
And I could see him saying there and being, well, I was just getting my expert opinion. I could see that being true. Do I really believe it? I'm not so sure. Again, he's kind of a slimy, slippery figure. So I don't know how much of it we can believe. But is it believable that in this particular instance, Gavin was just saying, I'm just telling you guys what they were looking for. I didn't tell you I did this. I didn't tell you I was looking into this and doing it illegally. I'm just telling you this is what they were looking for. It's feasible.
Why did you talk about it on BBC as though you did?
I was edited tonight. I'm really angry about it. They're taking it down. There's a lawsuit coming over that as well.
You're suing them?
Well, funnily, yeah, I am.
I don't know, again, how much of that we can actually believe, ladies and gentlemen, but it is also like 100% possible that he was edited in a way that made him look culpable when he wasn't. The press does do that too. They do that quite a bit. I was actually talking to a family member at the funeral who has this kind of exceptional story, and she was telling me how frustrated she was that, especially when she was trying to share the gospel as part of her story, that they just ignored that and that they didn't print or report it the way she wanted to. And I understand that the press does do that. I always, when I was doing interviews, I basically shared our entire conversation verbatim. I just took it basically the quotes they said and I kind of arranged it in an order. And that's what I did. That's always what I did. Cause it's like, I'm not really there to necessarily push an agenda, but other people definitely are.
But this is not the first time the slippery Gavin Burrows has seemingly gone back on what he said.
But if Chelsea Davy were here right now, what would you care to say to her?
He also got quite a bit of money from, I think, Harry's legal team. So that's important here. And he gives this kind of seemingly lovely apology. Does he mean any of it? I don't know. Because he didn't have anything to be guilty for. All very odd.
Oh, I'm very sorry. I am very sorry, because my actions were ruthless, but they were, and I'm not making the excuse, but they were ruthless because I was greedy.
So he's saying that this was all hypothetical, and yet he's going on and giving an apology to something that he probably shouldn't be apologizing for if it was all just hypothetical in the first place, right? So again, I think he's a noted liar. But here's the thing. If he's a noted liar, that's fine. But why would you bring a case if you knew the guy who was the crutch of your case, a noted liar? It's just dumb.
And because I was into my cocaine and I was living in a fake state of grandeur.
Since that interview, Prince Harry's so-called star witness in the trial has turned rogue.
I like that. His star witness in the trial has turned rogue. Yes, he has turned rogue. And that's the danger. If his testimony is good and you can back it up with physical evidence, I mean, if he goes rogue, that's fine. You still had the evidence to back it up. The problem is they had no evidence. That's the problem.
Changing sides to defend the papers and tanking the celebrity legal case. But as you'll see, it gets a whole lot worse.
And do we have any sympathy for Harry, guys? No, not really. No, there's not a ton of sympathy for Harry in this particular instance because he should have been smarter about it. And a journalist who was caught up in this case has a blistering assessment of Harry at the end, and it's quite good.
Coming up, allegations of lies and forgeries against Harry's team. This time, it's not the papers playing dirty.
Britney's.
And I think Harry has no guilt at all with playing dirty because he feels justified in it, which again gives you a very much a baseline of Harry's character.
To be exposed is, I mean, he's the biggest scam in legal history.
Biggest scam in legal history, guys. Ooh, Harry's Daily Mail fail. I wish I had done Daily Fail as like a headline, but I didn't.
As fair game. But after a lifetime of being a target, Prince Harry has fought back.
So Harry and, of course, many members of the royal family and others were targets of the press. And the press did go too far. That nobody's denying that. But again, that they went too far is true. But you also have to prove illegality, and they didn't do that.
Message to the British press.
Securing wins against two of the biggest newspaper groups in Britain.
News UK have admitted that The Sun has indeed engaged in illegal practices.
So he got a couple of wins and got a really big ego. And those were all culminating in going after the big fish, which was the Daily Mail.
Spurred on by his earlier success, Harry and a group of high-profile friends sued the Daily Mail group, accusing its journalists of unlawfully gathering their most personal details.
The sad part here is that there could have been a way to maybe go about this in a more, I don't know if you want to call it dignified, but a smarter way, and Harry and his team just couldn't do it.
But in a shock blow last month, they lost their 4-year court case.
The High Court dismissed every single one of the 97 claims.
I think he thought he was following in his beloved mother's footsteps by taking action.
I think he was. I think, again, so much of Harry is based around like trying to defend his mother, trying to push the memory of his mother and defend her and all these sorts of things. And while that's somewhat admirable, she died 30 years ago. The time period in which she lived and died is totally different from now. Social media has changed everything when it comes to paparazzi cultures because nobody's more invasive into a celebrity than the celebrity. You've even seen this with Harry and Meghan. So this whole notion that he is finally like trying to protect her from beyond the grave is just honestly a little silly, guys. It is like I can have sympathy and empathize with a son who desperately wants to help his mother, but at the same time, he had to be realistic here. And he has to look at the world they actually live in, not the fantasy delusional world Harry thinks they live in.
To protect his privacy and, in fact, more so perhaps the privacy of his wife.
And that's another big component here is Meghan Markle. So Harry, in this particular instance, is been, I think, riled up by Meghan Markle. So there has been reports that Meghan Markle didn't want him to really pursue this case or was concerned about this case, and he pursued it anyways. The problem is for Meghan is that she is the one who wound the toy up, and now the toy won't stop. It's kind of like the brooms in Fantasia. She did the spell. She got Harry to go on these crusades on her behalf, basically, and now she can't shut him off because he desperately wants to support her and love her and prove and like protect her and all these sorts of things. And in that process, though, he has destroyed them in many ways as well, pursuing these frivolous lawsuits. This is a frivolous lawsuit. It never should have been brought. He never should have gone down this direction. And as a result, it might cost them, again, millions upon millions of dollars. Millions of dollars on a fool's errand. But Harry has no one to blame but himself because part of the reason they left the royal family is the press. Part of the reason they went to Hollywood is the press and all these sorts of things. And so Harry is so determined to protect Meghan in this really vain comparison to his mother, which doesn't make sense because they're women separated by 30 years, at least in terms of their public interest and stuff, or maybe closer to 20 years. There's such a difference in their time periods that there is no parallel between the two. The parallel doesn't even exist because it's so incredibly separate. But the psychology of his mother's death and the emotional and mental manipulations of his wife has resulted in Harry pursuing these frivolous lawsuits. And he got a couple through because, yeah, probably they were doing things they shouldn't have been doing. But the Daily Mail is like kind of the line in the sand go, no, we are not doing what you're claiming we're doing. And we're going to fight you tooth and nail to prove you're wrong. And they fought, and I don't think they had to fight that hard in some ways. And they won, and they are going to make Harry pay.
It was quite, in fact, a noble thing for him to take on.
I actually disagree. I don't think it was a noble thing for Harry to take on because when it comes to nobility, noble means that you are actually like you have a plan, you have an agenda. Harry feels just so vengeful and angry and emotional that you can't really, I think, have a good case or a good outcome because everything is based off of these really kind of whiplash emotions. I think that works in situations where you need somebody to act like if you're a woman and there's a guy trying to mug you and another guy comes in to rescue you. That's I think very positive because you had to act decisively. This required a cooler head. It required intelligence and critical thinking, which Harry does not possess. And that is why he's in this mess right now.
But media lawyer Jeffrey Robertson says the case turned into a circus when the key witness for the Harry team seemingly swapped sides.
This, again, is why you don't rely on one single witness to win your case or one single witness to bring all the evidence. That's just sheer stupidity, and they deserve to lose.
The evidence they thought they had came from a man who retracted it and was of no credibility at all.
And that's something that they should have been able to figure out, that it got this far and then they discovered. I'm like, oh, no, that's just dumb. They had to know. And lawyers were more interested in pursuing their agenda than they were in actually helping their clients. And that is a disservice by the lawyers.
That man was Gavin Burrows, and his so-called evidence came in the form of a 21-page statement made to Harry's legal research team.
So he did this whole statement. And then, Carol Middleton for private information about Prince William and her daughter Kate. So he apparently allegedly gave them that. And then he's like, nope, I didn't do it. Again, like as soon as that happened, they should have dropped this case immediately and apologized profusely to the Daily Mail. But Harry couldn't do it. And again, he might lose like 9 million pounds because of it. And with the conversion rate, that's a heck of a lot more in dollars, isn't it? Just pointing that out there.
In it, Burrows, a private investigator, claimed the Daily Mail was his biggest client. He said he followed the paper's instructions to commit crimes, mobile phone hacking, landline tapping, and house bugging.
I mean, it's crazy how much he was there, like that there were so many opportunities and what people were doing in the 90s and early 2000s. It's insane. And again, none of this really exists anymore. None of this, thankfully, really exists anymore. The media field is way too diversified. The publications, the press is not only competing against themselves, but against people like me. And so they just don't even have the time to do stuff like that. And a celebrity is more likely to show something intimate than they are able to find on their own.
For Harry and co, he was the dream smoking gun. Except he now denies he ever made the statement or knew anything about it.
I mean, again, the whole thing is just so slimy. And again, Harry's lawyers are slimy. This guy is slimy. This was all just, there's just slime everywhere in this case. And it's just like, this was just, I can't believe they brought this case. They deserve to lose and lose big, in my opinion.
I mean, I haven't walked. What I'm sick of is they're saying in the press I switched sides. Well, I wasn't on any side.
But you were. You were working with the research team for a year before the trial.
I mean, they do a good job here at 60 Minutes. Sorry, again, we had to pause for different reasons. But I definitely do think that 60 Minutes Australia, they do a good job.
What were you doing for them?
I was purely there to give my expert opinion.
How much did you get paid?
Yeah, I did receive £75,000, but I'm a businessman, you know.
And that's the rub. So see, here's the thing. When you pay somebody for information, they may tell you whatever they need to get that 75,000 pounds. Doesn't mean it was true. Doesn't mean it wasn't true. He's like, I just want the 75,000 pounds. I will tell you whatever you want to hear and you give me money and we call it good. That's, I think, what happened here. And that's just like, they should never have, if they could not get him to testify for free or give his statement for free, they never should have taken it. That's just, again, the levels of dumb here.
But then the wily businessman and the research team fell out and had no contact. 15 months later, Gavin learned he was being touted as the team's whistleblower, expected to give explosive evidence.
I think, and I wouldn't be surprised, guys, if Harry's legal team definitely did pull one over on him and just go, yep, he's our star witness. And he's like, I don't think so. Because again, your star witness has to agree to be your star witness. That's the thing, especially in civil trials. Criminal courts is different because you can compel somebody. Civil court, I don't think that's quite the case.
Court against the Daily Mail publishers. So when did you discover that you were being used as the star witness in this case?
When I read it in the newspaper, really.
That doesn't, again, surprise me very much at all. But it's so hard to read him because he's so confident here. I think he will, if you give him money, he will sing like a canary for whatever you want to hear. That's the type of guy he is.
And some, sorry, no offense, but you know what journalists are like. Suddenly they're making me the star witness. I don't know who made that up.
There's some truth there. There's some truth. Journalism, to a certain extent, is sensational. So I understand. But it should be sensational in a way that's truthful. Like if anybody ever says to me that, oh, you're doing clickbait. And I was like, well, number one, clickbait means that you are advertising something and you click on it and it's entirely different. That is not what I'm doing, number one. But number two, what I have to do is I have to make something seem interesting enough for you to click on it, but not overly sensationalize it to the point where it's not true. Now, maybe sometimes I don't get that always correct and all right, but I really try to be very, let's say, conscientious of how I do things.
It's ridiculous. And what they've done is they've tried to turn my expert opinion into a witness statement. I never made a statement.
As outlandish as it might sound, he accuses the team behind Harry of fabricating the statement. And
oh gosh, so bad. This is the worst court case ever. Oh my gosh, I can't believe they brought this case. It's so bad.
Forging his signature, something Harry's legal team denies. Gavin alleges that what he says were made-up assertions were used to convince the unwitting Harry and the other celebrities to sign up to the lawsuit.
If I was Harry and these other people, especially with the amount of money involved, you should always ask for another opinion. You should always see, what are the lawyers getting out of this? Because what if they're wrong? What if they're wrong? And it's just, you're screwed. You end up being totally screwed.
He claims to have been so outraged he joined forces with the papers against the prince.
I phoned Mail's Legal. I think they were a bit surprised to hear from me.
I'm sure they were. They're like, what the heck is going on? And I'm sure them too. So here's the thing about the Daily Mail. They did not rely on Gavin to give their evidence. He was not their star witness. They had numerous witnesses. So if Gavin was like, oh, I'm not going to testify, the Daily Mail's like, great, that's awesome. But, you know, our entire case doesn't rest on you either, which is smart. Harry's team was very dumb.
And I said, no, it really is me. And I thought that would be the end of it. But they're so greedy. And I suppose you could say that the legal team were too scared to go back. They couldn't really go back to the claimants and say they lied, could they?
I think there's some truth there. This is kind of an interesting thing. It's like one of those things where the train kind of keeps going and it's going down the hill and you can't really stop it. So one of my personal theories, take it for what you will, is that when it came to Kim Kardashian's wedding to Chris Humphries, I was more or least aware the Kardashians at that point I didn't even follow them that closely, but the hubbub of that was all over the internet and all over like magazines and stuff. What I thought of at the time, and I did watch some of the episodes at the time, and of course they divorced after like 75 days or whatever it was, 49 days maybe even, is that I thought when I kind of watched Kim, I think what happened in that particular case is that once they got engaged, once they started planning the wedding and those sorts of things, some issues did come up, but the train had already left the station and it kept going and going. And to stop it and turn it around would require so much effort that sometimes people just kind of go along with it and hope things get better and then realize they made a horrible mistake. And sometimes they just keep going because they don't have the courage or the wherewithal or the acknowledgement that, yeah, we made a mistake. We are embarrassing ourselves because it's embarrassing as well to go, yeah, we really messed up. And so instead of acknowledging the embarrassment, they just kept going. And now they are hugely embarrassed and hugely out of a lot of money. But guess who's not out of money at all? The lawyers. The lawyers are never out of money, guys. That's the important thing in this lawsuit to remember, or any lawsuit you bring, is that who's getting paid? The lawyers. No matter who wins or loses, the lawyers get paid. So that's always something to consider.
Claimants have been duped. But it needs to be exposed. It is the biggest scam in legal history.
I mean, that's, again, super interesting thought there, that it's the biggest legal scam in history.
Former Daily Mail journalist Nicole Lampert has a similar view. She was sued by the group for using information illegally sourced to write her articles.
I can't quite tell if she says legally or illegally, but obviously the allegation is that it was illegal, and she says she gathered it legally. So that's just important.
In some ways, I don't blame them for believing this evidence and for wanting to believe it. And really the question is over the people who created this false trail and this evidence, or this lack of evidence.
That's important too. If you want to believe something so much, sometimes you can fool yourself even when the evidence is telling you something to the contrary. And that's so important to keep in mind. It's like, especially with Harry and Meghan or anything in life, it's like, are you believing it just because you want to believe it or because it's true? Because those are two different things. Because sometimes I think, we're all guilty of this. It's like I buy a dress going, I'm going to fit into this one day. And then that doesn't happen for sometimes a while. And then I finally do. And I'm like, whoo, this is so cool. And then I don't fit into it again. But anyways, you buy into something hoping that fortunes will change or hoping that things will go in your direction without actually looking at the facts in the situation. And I think that's what we have here.
And the court found in her favour that she didn't break the law. A win, she says, for journalism, a loss for those who try to avoid scrutiny.
I think that's such an important thing to mention as well, is that there are people who want to avoid scrutiny. And this 100% plays into the Meghan Markle of academia in the UK, Jason Arday. Again, we will get to him after this story because I find that story really, really fascinating. And that there are people who, and Meghan Markle is definitely guilty of this as well, and Prince Harry, of wanting not to have information exposed that they think that they don't want to expose, but is actually in the public's interest. They want to hide things. They want to conceal things. And if you are a public figure, there's some times and points where, you don't have the right to privacy in certain things. If you want to live a totally private life, you get off social media, you get off the entertainment industry entirely, and you live privately. People want to avoid scrutiny, especially certain public figures. And so that's what I think we see here. Meghan Markle and Harry are obviously key among those.
You don't think this fight was about principle?
No. These are not principled people, any of them.
I think that's very true. The free speech and the press should only terrify you if you have things to hide. If not, it's totally, they're doing their job and it's an important job.
And I'm not talking about the celebrities. I'm talking about the people behind this.
I am talking about the celebrities. And it would seem that foremost that their fight was about what they believed.
So there are, of course, those who are behind the scenes manipulating things and the celebrities up in front. And yes, both groups are guilty of certain things.
Was about principle.
No, I don't think so. I think they believed that they had perhaps been hacked or something like that, and that there was a way of getting money out of it. I think Prince Harry certainly thinks, he thinks that he has principles, but
that's so important. He thinks he has principles. He thinks certain things. They all think certain things, but that doesn't make it fact.
He has quite a distorted sense of reality, I would say.
I think that's so important. He does have a really big distorted sense of reality. So critical.
Supporting the claimants, Emma Jones from lobby group Hacked Off denies the papers deserve a victory march despite their overwhelming win in the court.
So there was an article I wrote on Substack that I never sent. I should have sent it, but I was like so worried I got something wrong. I didn't. I should have just clicked send anyway. So maybe I'll just put it up and see if people want to see it. But Hacked Off, it was weird because it's like, they're like, oh no, we really didn't have anything to do with this, but yet they were obviously seemingly very involved in this case. And so they are a group that is supported by Hugh Grant, and I think I want to say he settled this case or backed away from this case right before it went to trial, or maybe I think that was the Sun case, excuse me. So he was just the one, he's like, I don't want to go through this court case and lose and then have to pay everything. And their job is basically censorship. That at the end of the day, something like Hacked Off is censorship. They want some sort of big cadre overlord monitoring the media. I think what we should do, other media people, is call out people. If something's wrong, correct it. But in terms of having the public do it, I think in many ways, the public discourse will eventually move things in a positive direction. Yes, there'll be some gullible people. I mean, I can think of a case right now, not getting too specific, but maybe you can suss it out that there's a lot of people who believe someone, and I think that will all crash and burn spectacularly in one way or another. It will, because something like that just can't stand forever. You can't do something forever. And again, Jason Arday, great example. You can't do something forever and think you'll get away with it. At some point, it is going to crash and burn on you. And then you have massive levels of egg on your face in multiple ways.
None of the claims stood up. None of them were accepted. That is a catastrophic loss, isn't it?
Well, it's been obviously billed as a catastrophic loss by the Mail, but
It has been a catastrophic loss. You guys lost spectacularly. Just own it. Just own it. Everybody's so much better if you do.
were they exonerated is a different question. I mean, you've got to ask the question, why were they writing stories about people's ectopic pregnancies? Why were they speculating about the paternity of people's children?
That's not the question, though. Can you prove that they gathered the information illegally? You can argue morally that the stories that they posted were intrusive and wrong and shouldn't have been published at all. But you have to prove that they did something illegal. Those are two very different things. You can ask for a more moral news outlets, and I would argue they have moved in that direction broadly because of obviously Princess Diana, but as well, the news media has shifted so radically. She just sounds like echoes of a bygone era and people who like don't want certain things in the press because it's embarrassing to them. That's what she sounds like to me. So she comes across here as quite weak.
Why were they paying over £3 million to private investigators for stories over a period of time?
But you still have to prove it. You can't just say that. You have to prove it. Prove it was illegal. Prove it was bad. Those sorts of things. Her claimants, the people she supported, couldn't do it.
Hacked off campaigns for both press freedom and press accountability.
I don't think the two can be synonymous, to be quite honest. I think that's a dangerous thing. Accountability always means censorship. It basically always does. I think personal accountability is good. But I think if you're broadly talking about, well, there needs to be press accountability, that generally means some sort of system that would result in censorship. Let the press go and let the public chastise those who go too far. And maybe people will learn and maybe raise people with good morals, and maybe you don't have to deal with these issues. Just putting that out there.
Newspapers should be in the business of finding out information about powerful people and holding them to account, not delving in the rubbish bins of people to try and find out who they've been having sex with.
Sometimes, though, those stories are relevant. They are relevant stories. They are something nobody wants to talk about, but I mean, very famously in the United States, this was 2004, I think it was. Was his last name Kerry? No. That was John Kerry. No. His running mate, Jonathan Edwards. It came out during the campaign because he was part of John Kerry's ticket. So John Kerry and Jonathan Edwards. I want to say it's Jonathan Edwards. Please forgive me if I'm using the first name wrong. But he had a wife with cancer, Edwards did. And it came out that he had a love child, and that was published by the National Enquirer. And I think the public definitely had an interest in knowing that a member of the Senate who was running for vice president, a office that was considered moral and has a level of authority, and I would argue somewhat a level of moral authority, I think they had a right to go with that story. I don't think there should have been any way any reason to censor it. And I think another board would have gone, oh, it's just a private family issue. No. If you are a politician, I think that is a public issue. I think that is a public issue. Now, you can obviously debate about Trump, but at the same time, at least when it comes to his marriage infidelity, it was like, if that happened, there were no big stories about it in terms of, in the same way, in terms of having a love child or anything like that. And those stories have been well talked about throughout the years. So none of that was a big surprise in the same way. But especially and I don't think Trump has ever stood on like the ground of moral authority in that way. But if you are standing on the ground of moral authority and you're having an affair, that's a conflict of interest, and it shows the level of deception that I think the public has a right to be genuinely concerned about. Now, if you could argue with a celebrity, I think that's a little bit different. But royals and people who have a role that gives them a level of moral authority, it'd be like a pastor or a priest having an affair. The public has a right to know that, because that's wrong. I actually just got an email from a place I used to live, the local university there. They just let somebody go for inappropriate reasons. And so it's one of those things where, yes, you have the right to share certain things, not everything. Like if somebody has illicit pictures, you shouldn't really be sharing those. If like they were between a husband and a wife, that's their business. But I mean, it's one of those things where it's like you kind of have to have that sort of moral kind of boundaries yourself in some ways, and not everybody has that because some people are just after it for the money, unfortunately. So again, this is a nuanced situation, but I will never ever advocate for a panel of news reporters there or like a panel of experts there to guide the news or something. That's not going to go well.
While there's no doubt the tussle over what is private and what should be made public goes on, that's not what was being scrutinised in this case. At the centre of this trial was how the Mail gathered sensitive and personal details on celebrity subjects.
I love that she said that. That is so critical. Again, you had the moral component and the illegal component. This kind of comes back to Andrew as well. Andrew did very immoral things, but you have to prove that they were illegal too. And sometimes you can't do that. They can be immoral and you can criticize him heavily for what he did. But did it cross a line into something illegal? That's a totally different question. Totally different question, because it's not illegal to have an affair. Anybody. It's not illegal for them to have an affair. Maybe in some countries, in Muslim countries or whatever. Like if you have an affair, you have an affair. That's a moral problem. It's not necessarily a criminal one. There's other situations that do delve into the realm of criminal, but has to be a distinction, because that I think without that we'd all be in jail, right? Because we all fail in one way or another.
No matter how suspicious they seemed, their practices were deemed to be legal. A judgment Prince Harry finds hard to accept. Prince Harry's...
He just so wanted the Daily Mail to be the bad guy, and they just weren't. And he just couldn't deal with it.
The view of the judgment was that it was a whitewash.
She rolls her eyes. Did you guys see that? She rolled her eyes. Hold on. Let's see. We're at look at her. God, as she rolled her eyes at it. Harry decided this was an unjust judgment. And she's like, oh my gosh. This obnoxious little prince. And then she smiles. She's like, huh? I love it.
You roll your eyes.
It certainly wasn't a whitewash. It was 10 weeks of evidence and of lies being thrown at us journalists. And
I love that she said that. It's like, it wasn't a whitewash. They were just lying. And I think that's really true.
Then being unable to prove a single count against us. But perhaps, it feels to me that Prince Harry is both being a toddler, throwing his toys at the pram, but also perhaps he's incredibly gullible.
She goes into more, but again, we have to pause it for different copyright reasons. But it's important to note, too, what we got in the assessment from the court case is that people would be testifying. Charlotte Griffiths went into this, is that she would be testifying on one thing. Then they would bring up this other facet. And she's like, wait, that's not what we were talking about. And so the lawyers, I think, here were pretty duplicitous in what they were doing. They were really, in my personal opinion, especially Harry's lawyers, being very underhanded in this case to try to get the journalists to slip up. But I think I love that she called him a toddler and delusional, basically, because that is what he is.
He really believed that there was a case and there wasn't one.
And that's it. Well, let's listen to the little bit of that there real quick again.
At the pram. But also, perhaps he's incredibly gullible. He really believed that there was a case and there wasn't one.
So I do want to listen to her last bit, because I think I listened to this with Dan, but I think she's incredibly right. I think Harry was insanely gullible. He was kind of dense and dumb in this situation, and he got it's ended in disaster for him, and he has nobody else to blame but himself and his wife. Because again, Meghan is not fully culpable for everything, but I honestly believe the Harry that we see is definitely the result of manipulation by his wife. I think if Harry had married a better woman, I don't think we would see this Harry. He married somebody who exacerbated all his insecurities, all his paranoia, all his delusions, and then we get this Harry. I don't think we can separate I don't think you can say that the Harry that was in 2016 is the same as the Harry in 2026. They have radically changed. Yes, did Harry have some of the same feelings that he expresses like in Spare and in Netflix? Did he have some of those feelings about his family then? Yes. But I think his ego and his heart and his soul might have been soothed by a better woman, a woman who had a moral compass who could help him. But I think Meghan Markle came in and exacerbated everything that has made Harry the toxic, twisted man he is today. I think she exacerbated. I think those things were all there. Those puzzle pieces were all there. But I think instead of making a beautiful picture, it's made an ugly picture instead. And I think that is due to Meghan Markle. He has changed so much since meeting her. And you cannot separate that. You cannot separate Meghan's manipulation of Harry to how Harry has turned out.
The head of Prince Harry's legal research team for comment, but received no response. Hello, I'm...
All right, that's it. I was thinking there was more at the end there, but I guess not. So anyways, guys, that is the case. And I don't have any sympathy for Harry or anybody else on his team. They got what they deserved, in my personal opinion. They got 100% what they deserved. And they brought a case they knew they were going to lose and did it anyways because it was more important to push an agenda than to deal with the facts. And there's just a danger there. Like, deal with facts. Deal with accuracy and these sorts of things, and then you might win. But when everything becomes about agenda pushing and all these sorts of things, you just end up losing. And that's what I think we see here, 150%. And it's sad. It is sad. And that brings us to our next case. So this one is, I think, a bit, let's say, ladies and gentlemen, of a stretch. I will be honest, this is a bit of a stretch for a royal story, but I have been fascinated by this. And I think it's well worth exploring, especially in the case of Meghan Markle in the UK, because so much of what Meghan Markle asked for was accommodations, special privileges, and these sorts of things, and special treatment, basically because she's a Black woman. And she refuses to take any responsibility. She refuses to acknowledge her failings. She blames everybody else and always cries racism when things go wrong. And this is also the case for Jason Arday, doctor. I put in quotes. Quote, Dr. Jason Arday. This, if you're not familiar with this case, let me give you an overview. Because this one is dealing with academia, and it has broad implications for how people are seen and how DEI is so incredibly toxic and allows people to pass through without the scrutiny that they deserve. So in this particular case, a doctor who got his PhD in physical education, he was given, as a Black man, he was the youngest Black professor at Cambridge University. And he has this whole story about being neurodivergent, not reading or writing till he's 18, or not speaking or something like that. So many things. And as it turned out, there was a journalist, particularly with a publication that deals in higher education, that was investigating Mr. Arday. And he started seeing, which has been talked about so kind of broadly, is that he had plagiarized his dissertation. And if you're not familiar, plagiarism is the original sin or the ultimate sin of academia. You do not plagiarize somebody else's work. That is a hugely, hugely, hugely problematic thing. People's careers have been wrecked over it because it is so critically important that if you produce original work, that you set your sources. Now, sometimes in the news space, I'm not as good as doing that as I should be. Sometimes you just move so quickly that you kind of lose track of things, or at least I do. And so I will be totally and admit I'm not as good at that as I should be. But where was I going with that? But plagiarism is a huge, huge no-no. And so this journalist was investigating this man who was very much celebrated as the youngest Black professor in the history of Cambridge University. And he had this impressive CV. He had run like 600 miles in 6 days or something like that. And he had raised $5 million for a water charity. He had written this book, like so many things. And then what journalists had kind of figured out is that basically all of it was a lie. All of it was massively exaggerated. And basically everything about him is probably a lie. He made up this whole narrative, but it fit what works in academia and in certain circles, which is DEI. Do you know why some people want Meghan Markle in the monarchy? It's only because of the color of her skin, no other reason. It's more about the tokenism of her than anything she can actually bring to the institution. And this man was the same way. He had a degree in physical education and was teaching sociology and education classes, which he probably wasn't qualified for. And he was plagiarizing his work. And there was a great quote I saw in an article that because in academia, sometimes things, let's say, the academics do things for academics, for other academics to read, he really wasn't under a whole bunch of scrutiny in a way. And a bunch of his stuff was probably plagiarized. So you also have, sorry, my nose itches a little bit. There's also a video of him talking on the BBC about abolishing the monarchy. So it gets into the royal stuff here too. Abolishing the monarchy because 70% of Britons live below the breadline, which is not true. It's more like 20 to 21%. In addition to that, the monarchy only makes up 0.1% of the British government. So how can you fix 70% with 0.1%? The answer is you can't. That's illogical. That's completely and utterly illogical. And so in that particular situation, it's like he was given an authority, a level of privilege, because coming from Cambridge University, obviously two of the most important institutions in the UK, for sure, two of the most broadest and most important institutions overall in the world in terms of higher education are Oxford and Cambridge. Everybody knows what Oxford and Cambridge are. Kind of like Harvard. Like I would say obviously Harvard more than anybody else, but this is just a huge, huge story. And so the journalist who was investigating Arday had actually written to him 3 times, really hadn't heard back. And then he gets a phone call 4 months later, after 4 months after I guess he initially contacted him or something. And it's a guy from Met Police going, hey, we had opened up an investigation into you for quote unquote harassing Arday, asking him about plagiarism, again, which is a huge, huge sin in the academic community and hugely needs to be called out, especially if you are teaching young people. And we put you under investigation for that. You were asking questions. You can't ask questions of a Black man in academia who might have plagiarized things. You can't do that. So we called you in for harassment, and and the journalist is like, and they closed the case, but the journalist is like, excuse me? I was doing my job, and you're telling me that I was under investigation for literally asking questions. And here's the thing, this is how it kind of applies even to the Harry case and everything, is that some people don't want journalists to ask questions because if they do, the whole house of cards collapse. And that was the case with Mr. Arday here. You can kind of read more about it in the Telegraph and everything. I won't go into all the details, but like, this is just so like incredibly important, is that this idea that you can't ask questions, that to ask questions of somebody with a certain skin color in a certain position because they don't want questions asked or that they think they can get away from accountability is just so incredibly wrong. It's just so incredibly wrong. There should have been no issue. If it wasn't true, just answer the questions. Like it won't kill you to answer the questions. And he didn't want to. Now it's unclear who made the complaint. Most likely it was Arday, maybe somebody supporting him, because there's some groups that are still supporting him. And it's not based on his credentials. It's based on the color of his skin. And again, that comes back to Meghan Markle. Meghan Markle wanted accommodations. She wanted privileges. She wanted her children basically to have this hugely elevated position in the monarchy just based on the color of her skin. And when she didn't get her way, she cried racism, just like Arday has. Arday has cried racism. He has cried racism, and he has deflected and blamed his autism for not citing things correctly. Again, racism has been claimed as well. And none of that really stacks up to reality. Just because somebody questions you doesn't mean that's racist. And in very many like communities and in in jobs and stuff, they are hiring people based on the color of their skin or their sex. So, for example, my dad knew somebody whose daughter was excellent in her school and didn't get into Harvard, but somebody else of a minority did. Now, that doesn't mean that the minority didn't earn it, but it raises the question of, did you allow this person to come into this university based on the ethnicity box they clicked or their credentials? I had another, it was my former boss, her son was a medical student and was fully qualified to enter directly into the medical program, and he was denied his position, and it was instead given to somebody who needed remedial classes, most likely a person of color. Do you want somebody who needed remedial classes and is a person of color doing your surgery, or the person that was fully qualified initially, passed all the tests with flying colors, entering into the program in the fullness of the program, being able to complete it? Or even pilots. Do you want a pilot hired based on their DEI, or do you want a pilot hired because they're the most competent person? Like, that is a severe question. And this man had access to young people who he could influence. He had a platform given to him by Cambridge University because of the color of his skin, and that the guy spun a good story that nobody seemed to question because of the color of his skin. Now, Meghan Markle didn't get quite that same level of passing, but that's what she wanted, guys. She wanted that same level of passing. And I think it's so important that she didn't get that level of passing, because you need to question things. That's what journalists are there to do. That's not to say that Meghan Markle wasn't on the receiving end of some inappropriate stories, or stories that shouldn't have been published and those sorts of things. Of course, she did not deserve some of what they did. But at the same time, them questioning, hey, why are you clutching your bum so much? That's kind of weird. Or, hey, why are you going to New York and spending, 6 figures on a baby shower? Hey, why are you and your husband spending constant amounts of time going on vacations and traveling around the world, and yet you're not doing your royal duties, and then you're complaining about carbon footprints and these sorts of things? These are questions that have to be answered. If you are on the public stage, you are subject to public scrutiny. And this gentleman, in my very personal opinion, number one, I think he is guilty, most likely, of the plagiarism that he is accused of. I think he plagiarized his work. And again, hugely, that is so wrong. So wrong. He deserves to be called out for it. He deserves to be investigated. They, quote unquote, did investigate him, but I don't think they did it seriously, because they were so invested in the tokenism that accountability flew out the window. And to go back to like the analogy of the doctor or the pilot, I have no doubt there are people of color who are highly qualified in their field. I applaud anybody who can reach those upper echelons of really challenging career paths. But when you have a situation where you don't know if somebody was hired based on the color of their skin or the qualifications and the merit of their work, that compromises everybody. Because then you're double checking. It's like, Ben Carson, amazing neurosurgeon. I think that was his specialty. Neurosurgeon, amazing neurosurgeon. Yes, people have obviously thoughts about his political leanings, but he was highly qualified in the field he was in. But I don't know in some situations if everybody a person of color is. You don't maybe know until it's too late, because they were brought in not based on their qualifications, but because they hit a certain metric. I believe strongly in what Martin Luther King Jr. said. We want to judge people based on the content of their character and not the color of their skin. And in this particular situation in Cambridge, this guy was not hired because he was qualified. He was hired because he fit a demographic that the university loved and thought they could promote. And he was given a voice, an outside voice that I don't think he necessarily deserved. I don't think he earned. And he could influence people and policy based on that voice, based on the position Cambridge University gave him, which again, he did not earn and did not deserve. And so I just thought this would be a really, really just interesting little bit to highlight. If you're not familiar with this story, I really highly suggest that you go and investigate some of this yourself, because I think it's really revealing, especially when it comes to free speech in the press, that any member of the press was put under investigation simply for asking questions. is disturbing beyond all belief. And there's a lot of that happening in the UK, and in one ways or another, people being arrested and put in jail for social media posts. Like, that is horrific. You should not be doing that. You should be allowed to have an opinion. And even if that opinion is detestable, you're still allowed to have it. That should be what free speech encompasses. And yes, sometimes you do need to be cautious about certain things, but those are the extreme exception and not the reality on the ground. And in this particular situation, academia especially, like, this is part of the reason I would love to go higher up in academia in other institutions. But I did an online program, and it was just Liberty. And I know some people have really big thoughts about Liberty. And I didn't even like, sometimes I felt like when I was in the class, it's like I didn't feel the intellectual challenge, especially with my other cohorts, that I would have liked. But given my background is like, if I applied to a university, would I even be considered if I didn't hit certain boxes, if I didn't hit certain metrics, if I didn't study the way they wanted me to study, or the parts of history they wanted me to study? It's like, would you even get a spot? Because academia has become so incredibly, I think, politicized, so incredibly DEI, diversity focused and everything, that actually kills academia in so many ways. And so I think this is an incredibly important story. Again, I highly recommend everybody sort of look into it. Obviously, draw your own conclusions. And I mean, Strand here is right. DEI doesn't mean all qualified, but it also doesn't mean you're qualified either. That's the thing. I think it actually hurts people of color in even higher roles, because you're wondering how they got it, because this DEI is so ingrained that you just don't know anymore. You might get the best person in the field, and you might get the worst. You don't know. And the same thing is that for anybody. But because of this politicization and how it's going, I think this Cambridge example is a perfect example of how somebody who was totally and utterly unqualified got into a position. And it could be based on, DEI is based on, ethnicity, it's based on sex, it's based on sexual orientation. There are a lot of things that it encompasses. It doesn't just have to do with race, but this is, in this particular situation, the race is obviously a component here. So it's hard to ignore. But I just wanted to share this story, and I thought, oh my gosh, Meghan Markle, man, he's just like her in so many ways. He doesn't know that, but I just think that he is. So anyways, guys, I just thought that would be a fun case to go over. But Harry and Meghan, of course, I covered this in my video yesterday, talking about kind of how the Waleses are really winning and being successful, and Harry and Meghan have destroyed their children's future. And I just wanted to point out their hypocrisy here. So I saw this on Jack Royston because I was looking to see, I think, another story if Jack had posted, and I saw this one instead. And Jack Royston, I was like, I think you are the only person in the world checking this dumb website, Sussex.com. I don't think anybody else in the world is, on a general level. Like, and there should be a whole video, which I should do, about kind of the failure of our 12 philanthropies, because I don't see how what's happened to that. It's like, that seems dead. But this is one of those situations where Harry and Meghan's extreme hypocrisy about online stuff is just out there for the world to see. So it says, can we not all agree technology should not enable predators to target children? Oh my gosh, Meghan, I so incredibly agree. But let's get into here. They call out Elon Musk, who I think if Meghan Markle had a shot at bagging Elon Musk, she would drop Harry in a hot second. There's no way she could date and marry the wealthiest man alive. But it's talking about how obviously there's a growing evidence and stories of women, teens, and girls and children being targeted with AI-generated non-consensual images. And I do think that's horrific. So Archibald Philanthropies applauds leadership in taking tech-fueled sexualization of women and children seriously and doing all they can to keep society safe. So this is from Minnesota, taking the Take It Down Act in U.S. Congress. And then they call out Elon Musk, most recently ahead of the Minnesota law to ban notification apps going into effect tomorrow, the trillionaire leader of tech companies. And look, they had to bold it. and italicize it. Meghan Markle, her jealousy knows no bounds. She is so sad she is not the trillionaire wife of Elon Musk. Leader of the tech companies responsible for X's Grok sued the state of Minnesota to stop the law from going into place. If one wonders why someone would try to stop a ban on AI generated producing deepfakes of people and children in the nude without their consent, they need to look no further than 3 different groups, including a UK lawmaker, an Arkansas family, and 5 children from Tennessee, all filing new lawsuits against the same Grok feature, alleging it created sexual material of them just this week. The company is mitigating risk to their bottom line instead of aggressively responding to the clear evidence their product features are enabling predators to prey on women and children. Okay, so why does this matter when it comes to Harry and Meghan? And I blocked this out yesterday. We probably won't really block it out today. I do apologize, but let me show you guys something and tell me what you think. So we go over here, Instagram. Meghan, you're putting your kid in a swimsuit. Your young daughter, putting her on the internet. There are pervs out there, you know. There are genuine pervs out there. They could do a lot with that image. Very sad. Very sad. Very disturbing. Nobody wants that to happen. But guess what? You don't give the internet your children. That's how you avoid that. Meghan Markle has, at this point, 4.7 million followers. Do you want to bet there are pervs in that audience? Probably. And yet she still continues to get and share images of her kids. And yes, you can't fully see them, but are there, again, pervert men on the internet? Yes, there are. Yes, there are. Do you think they might look at a picture like that and do something horrible? Why, yes, they might do. And I'm not doing that. That's Meghan. And I will say, when I think I said this at the beginning, but I also filmed a video today that I'll edit and get it out tomorrow. So I didn't talk about Cookie Queens. I did see it. I do have a whole review I did of it that I need to edit, and I will post it tomorrow morning. But one of the things that really, really creeped me the heck out was that I was in the movie theater. There were only 2 other people in there. So 3 of us told them. And I walked in and I thought it was empty at first, because when I first got the ticket, the theater was empty. You know who's in the front row? A single man. There was a single man in the front row, or not the front row, but like the wheelchair access area. There was a woman who joined us in the back, and I couldn't help but think to myself, who was this man in the theater with us? What were his intentions? Because I don't think he should have, unless I did not see, I could be wrong, but I did not see anybody else there with him. I honestly do have the video, so I should double check and look. Actually, I can double check. And I can double check and look right now. I won't show him, but because obviously privacy. But there was a dude in the theater there who, by himself, and I can't help but think, why were you in a theater? Let's see. Oh, you can't really see him. Darn. I thought it was empty, but there's a dude in the front, and I just don't know why he was there. Don't know why he was there. Yeah, Azima says Cookie Queens. Is that what you're talking about? Yes. So yeah, there was a guy there in Cookie Queens by himself. And I feel like I'm being very vague and very kind of weird, and I apologize for that, but I don't know how much I can say on here. And obviously, I don't know, he might have had a perfectly legitimate reason for being there. But it felt very weird. It felt very weird to realize for a second there, I was in the theater alone with a man in a movie about Girl Scout cookies. Stina says it's not illegal for a man to watch a movie. It is not. But it's a weird one. Like, you have to understand, not everybody wants to think this way. But guys, there are perverts out there. There's a guy I watch. He runs a Dad Challenge podcast. He's talked about this, how certain disgusting men will watch the family vlog videos and share among themselves, highlighting certain videos showing certain things. Not that they're illegal, but that because they feature little girls or maybe other young children. And so it could be totally legitimate, but it could also be a creep factor. And the thing is, this is the thing, guys. I don't know which it was, and neither does Meghan when she's posting pictures of her children. You cannot sit there and complain about sexploitation of children on the internet, and you yourself are offering up your children for potentially that. Yes, you're not showing their faces, but they can still do things. They can still do things to your kids. They can still highlight things about your kids. And it's important to recognize that and be aware of that. And if Meghan really stands on this principle with Harry, they would never ever show their kids online. And the Waleses do have to, in a way. Again, I think it's part of the social contract between the public and the children, and hopefully they remain safe. But if Meghan Markle is going to stand on this principle, she's got to be better about protecting her kids. And let's think about how Catherine and William dress their children. They dress them incredibly appropriately. They're not showing them in swimsuits. Even when they were at the beach, they weren't in swimsuits. I don't think Catherine or William would ever show a picture of their kids in a swimsuit. Never. Because you don't know who's out there and you don't know who's looking at the pictures. And that's a terrifying reality that all parents must face. And we just, Bobby is right here. The problem is we have no idea. I totally understand. You have no idea what strangers are capable of. Thus, someone you don't know, you steer clear of. It's human nature. Exactly. It's, you think it's perfectly okay, but it's going to be perfectly fine. Everybody's normal. But the reality is they're just not. I didn't even think about that until he said it, the Dad Challenge podcast guy. And he's like, yeah, there's perverts around there creating playlists of videos of children that they find attractive or whatever. Like, it's disturbing. I didn't even think about that until he said it. It would never have occurred to me in the slightest that could happen with family vlogs. But it does. And he also said in some instances, a huge chunk of the audience is just men. And that should not be happening. But it is, because there's perverts out there. And if you give them access to your children, you never know what can happen. And I think Harry and Meghan in this instance, by showing their kids, I would argue, and violating their privacy a heck of a lot more than the Waleses ever have, they're offering their children up there and yet then complaining about the nudification of pictures online. You can't have it both ways. You either stand on the principle and recognize that there are tons of horrible people out there and you have young children that you need to protect, or you're more interested in just getting the clicks than actually protecting the kids. And that's what I think the reality is for Meghan. I think she's more interested in the clicks than protection. And that's a sad reality. That's really, really sad that that's where this case has come to. But it's true. And I just wanted to highlight that because I do find it to be so incredibly disturbing that Harry and Meghan just don't think of those things and yet complain and whine and go, oh, Grok and X, how terrible, how horrible. Yes, it is terrible and horrible that these things are happening. But they have an obligation as parents to be aware, especially with such a huge profile, of basically trying not to the best of your ability, ever post a picture of your child online. Yes, sometimes pictures will still get out there, but I think if you are so worried, if this is something you are thinking about, then why post your kids knowing that they could take those AI images and do things to them? Perverts. Why would you do that? Why would you risk it? But again, Meghan is more concerned about the clicks and the financial benefits of posting them online than actually protecting them, in my very personal opinion. And I think you only have the random, strange, single guy in the theater watching Cookie Queens as an example of how you could have a perfectly innocent audience and there could be a perv looking out there as well. So that is my thought. That is pretty much, I think, all I had for today. So hopefully it was maybe somewhat different, because obviously the Jason Arday thing, maybe not everybody is thinking about it, but let's go. We have some super chats here. We have Carol, who gifted 1 Royal News Network membership. Why, thank you so much, Carol. You also said and gave a super chat saying Meghan's constant need to clap back. She reveals more of the story. In a few months, we will know the complete story. Yeah, Meghan has a constant need to clap back, to respond, to kind of try to shift the narrative in these sorts of things. And it just never seems to go well for her. And the best thing is to just keep your mouth shut in the first place. And yeah, maybe Martha Stewart misheard or misunderstood, but best to just let the story rest. And if nothing comes out, nothing comes out. But you almost get the sense Meghan's worried that something is going to come out. So she's trying to already interfere, or Harry's worried or something. And they feel the need, again, to respond to a situation they don't really need to respond to. Oh, Fan, thank you so much for the super chat as well. Said, does it seem like 20 years later that Harry's humiliation and obsession with the press was one of the reasons why Chelsea and Cressida left? Yes. So you said part one. I don't totally see a part two, but like when it comes to the part one, Chelsea and Cressida, I think Chelsea especially, I think she genuinely loved him. I think she would have stayed. I honestly think she would have stayed. But Harry was so unstable. He blamed, I think, everything being bad in his life on the press. And I think Chelsea was kind of over it. She was kind of like, please stop. Like, yes, the press is intrusive. Yes, the press is bad, but you're actually making it worse by overreacting to it. And I don't think she wanted to deal with his instability anymore. And I think she was like, I'm done. I love you, Harry, but I'm done. I'm done. I want something else in my life. And she found it, and bravo to her. Disvan also said, and at that time, both Kensington Palace and Buckingham Palace didn't have a really good hold on how to handle Harry until Meghan came along, showing signs of her behavior. So I don't know necessarily about that. But when it came to, at the time, Harry, they were just trying to figure out a purpose for him, especially in his early life. They were just trying to figure out where to plug him in, that he would find purpose. And a lot of young men, like, this is not an uncommon struggle. Like my cousin Lise had a little bit of that as well. He kind of meandered for a while before finally joining the military. And so I don't think that is unusual at all for a young man to struggle a little bit. So I don't really criticize Harry there. But I think definitely his very negative relationship with the press definitely negatively impacted his personal relationships with his girlfriends. The Tropical Voyager said, thank you so much for the super chat as well. Better to be prudent and aware of your surroundings rather than play ignorant of the world around you. Reality with all family, friends, and neighbors. Yes. You have to be prudent. Be smart, be intelligent, be cautious, be cynical. I kind of joke I'm pretty cynical. I think the cynicism has done me well in some situations. Not all, but definitely some. Because sometimes too, you can think in situations innocent and you find yourself in a horrible situation. And I think that's sad and very, very concerning. And it's something I think we all struggle with in one way or another. Like there was this one situation where I was working retail, and obviously I had a bachelor's degree in history. It was a recession. I had no clue how to use it. I hadn't really done any internships. I was stuck in a dead-end job, and somebody came over to me and they're like, "Oh, I have the perfect out for you. I have this, and you can have," and like, well, why don't we talk? And we had this great chat, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, maybe I can get this job thing." And then I found out it was Amway. And there was like a training session at somebody's house. And I'm like, I'm not stepping into somebody's personal house by myself. And I was like, I felt bad. I felt dumb, but I was like, this is not the route I want to go down. And I think we all have those moments in our lives where, especially when we're down and we're thinking we have something and we really don't. But especially when it comes to the internet, like, you just got to be careful. That's why, guys, I'm so careful with what I say. It's not just that, like, I'm trying to be secretive, but like, I don't know who's watching. There are some crazy Sussex squad stalkers out there. I'm a single woman, so I try to be very conscientious of what I'm doing. I was sometimes a bit nervous about living by myself because, again, like, I don't know maybe what's going to happen. So I'm saving for a house, living with my parents for a bit, and honestly, there's a part of me that likes it because I feel a bit safer because I'm not by myself anymore. And so I have that additional protection, and that makes me feel comforted. But on the internet, especially, you don't know. So I'm always very careful with what I put out there. And I'm careful with how I travel. Like, I actually pay more when I travel than as work than I would probably on my own in some ways. Like, I pay for the first class or the upgraded seat or whatever because of my camera gear. And it's a lot of money. So if I stay at nicer hotels sometimes, stay in better parts of town, I may have to stay more, but I'm safer. And that's not always something like I enjoy by any stretch of the imagination, although sometimes I do. Sometimes I do. I'm going, oh, we got lunch. This is fun. But I do that in part for safety. I do that in part to keep my stuff safe, to have people treat especially my camera gear with respect. I don't have to worry about somebody complaining about my bags or anything. So you pay for the upgraded seat, and it kind of sucks, but that's sometimes what you got to do. My very personal opinion. So anyways, and I also had somebody, I wanted to address this because I'll address this in my video as well, but somebody asked me, why did I quote unquote waste my money on Cookie Queens? And yeah, it was a waste. It was much more expensive than I thought it should have been. But the reason I go and see things, the reason I watched with Meghan and I bought As Ever, and I got a lot of criticism for it, is that, guys, you can't really criticize something until you've tried it. You can't really give a full response on something until you've tried it. Until you've done something, until you've seen something, you can only give a little snippet. I can tell you about the movie because I watched the movie. Somebody else can complain about it, but they never took the time to watch the movie. And maybe they're right and maybe they're wrong. Maybe they have a different perspective. Like even As Ever, I was like, okay, give Meghan Markle, like I'll give her my full and complete openness when it comes to testing her products. I was like, I'll test them. I thought they were all bad. I genuinely thought they were all bad. And that's not because I wanted to hate. I was just trying them. But I can say that now because I have tried all of them. I'm almost thinking sometimes of like, do I want to like do a review and see if things have updated or anything? I don't know. Kind of toss that around from time to time. And oh, have you noticed on Instagram, maybe it's just because I follow As Ever and Meghan, which I get criticized for as well, but that's the fastest way to get information when she posts. Just saying. But anyways, oh my gosh, there have been so many As Ever ads going, guys, right now. Some of them are products she's not even selling anymore. It's insane how many As Ever ads I'm getting, like insane. So Subak says, are you going to try shortbread cookies with jam layered in between? Maybe. And I will say, man, people treated Meghan Markle dirty because they said in that initial article, maybe I said this earlier, so I do apologize, but they initially said that she said her favorite cookies were Thin Mints and that she liked to dip them. And then they went with the quote that she liked to dip them in jam. So I'm thinking, you're dipping Thin Mints in jam? No. It's shortbread cookies. And I'm like, that makes so much more sense. Because I did double check. I went back to the article and it definitely for sure did not say that she was talking about shortbread cookies. It sounded like she was talking about Thin Mints. And I'm like, because I was like, I could have misread because I read fast and sometimes I'm like reading through a bunch of different things. And I was like kind of annoyed. I'm like, when I watched the video, which was dumb, and I don't even think has that many views at this point, of her helping the girls pick the new cookies or whatever. But yeah. So, and as my cat's name is Karen says, I would much rather you do the dirty work of buying her stuff and watching her content. Yes, I have no issue with like doing some of that. Number one, I can write it off technically, but number two, it's like, I think it's important to see something. If you're going to criticize a movie, you have to see it. Like that's why I saw the Odyssey. I do have somebody asked in the comments a while ago. I do need to follow up because I did do a whole Odyssey review that I recorded, but I just never got around to editing it. So I may just release it to the members if you're interested because I have an idea for something and we'll see. But I just wanted to like, I can't really criticize it until you watch it, until you interact with it. You can't totally criticize it. I mean, people still do. I still do. But I do think it's good to go over because it gives you a better sense of something. That's why I also like doing the tours. So guys, we do still have tours to Slovenia, Tuscany, and London coming up. We do already have 2 people signed up for the London trip, which is awesome because that holds the date for us. We still need more people to sign up to confirm it, but we hold the dates in November of 2027. I know I'm not a big fan of it. That's how the travel company is doing it anymore. Like I had to, like there was 1 spot left in November. Like I had to rush and grab it. I'm like so much could happen in like a year and a half almost. Like this is crazy. I actually got it I actually secured it a couple months ago. So I've been waiting on it because I wanted to get closer to the closing the Slovenia date before offering it. And it's just crazy because I secured it 18 months ago. And I'm like, so much could happen between now and November of 2027. But anyways, that's why I like going to actual locations and seeing things, because it adds such greater depth to your understanding of things. And consuming or reviewing Harry and Meghan's products is the same thing. You have to see it and consume it in order to get a view. And again, I see the same issues with Cookie Queens that I saw in most of Harry and Meghan's productions, which are they're boring, they're not particularly compelling, and there definitely wasn't this emotional release that, kind of Meghan kind of tried to push. It's just kind of there. It's not really well done as a documentary, I think. And I just came across liking the Girl Scouts less overall. I think the cookie selling aspect is kind of slimy, in my opinion. Bobby Australia says, hats off to you, Brittany. Thank you for watching this disaster of a documentary so we don't have to. You are welcome. You're welcome. As Johnson says, not trying to be a DICK, but almost everyone who gets a degree in history, it's because they don't really have to work. What jobs are there out there that you didn't even get to try internship? So it was kind of before, and this is important. I think history is a fantastic degree to get because it gives you so much information about so much, and it tells you you have to learn about economics, you have to learn about politics, sometimes you have to learn about agriculture, you have to learn about military history, you have to learn about so many different things. And I think it allows you in some ways. You have like sort of a psychology degree, sociology degree, anthropology degree, because all those things factor into history. History is a history basically of everything, right? So you have to have a little bit of understanding of even science and these sorts of things. And I think it's a fantastic degree. But at the time when I was getting my degree, number one, I actually had 2 years of community college done before I entered college. So I was a freshman and a junior at the same time. And then I was a sophomore and a graduating senior at the same time. So that put me in a little bit of an off thing. So I technically graduated college when I was 20. And because of that, I enjoyed that because I hated high school, but I kind of wish I had more of the full rounded college experience because I think that would have been a bit better. I did do an internship. I did do an archaeological degree or archaeological dig and found out, guess what? I don't really like doing archaeological digs, but I still want to do one maybe as an adult, just like in the Holy Land or something. I would love to do that. But I found out that I'm not really very good at archaeology. I don't like getting dirty. But I did find the skeleton in the bucket very entertaining. There was a skeleton in the bucket in the little office we had because you would dig in the morning. There would be lunch. It would be like a 3-course meal. And then I would get cleaned up because I'm covered in dirt and I didn't like that. And so then we would have our time where we would clean the items that we found, the artifacts that we found, and they would try to put some of the pottery pieces back together. And it was just funny because there's all this stuff that they couldn't fit in the museum in there. And it's in the basement of this building. It was the largest Roman site in Portugal, but it wasn't like the museum part wasn't huge. And it was just funny because there's this plastic bucket and there's this guy, like his skull in this plastic bag and the rest of his skeleton sitting in this bucket. And I always remember thinking, I was like, I wonder if that guy ever thought that he would spend part of his eternal rest in a bucket with archaeology interns looking at him. I always thought that was just kind of a funny idea to me. But anyways, but at the time, just internships were not as big a deal as they are today. So that was not really something talked about. I was kind of in a weird middle spot that most people aren't in my particular degree. And at the time, I sort of wanted to have a PhD or teach history. And I didn't quite, but like education would have taken longer to finish. And I wanted to have graduated, but I just didn't have a plan. And I would encourage, especially young historians, is like, if you love history, awesome. If you want to get a degree in it, fantastic. But you do need to think of it how it's applicable. And so, I ended up getting a track finally, even after I had my master's degree, and I still couldn't figure out how to get a job in history. Because you have to have a museum degree to work in museum, a PhD to teach at the college level. You could teach at the community college level, but those jobs are fewer and harder and to find in between. And generally they don't pay that much. So, I was just really meandering. And you know what? People do that. People just do that. Anyways, so what I found was a job that was low paying, but it was administrative / research assistant. So I took that job, did that for 2 years, moved up in the company to a different job in marketing, because what I knew my degree was really good at was writing. I should be able to write really well as a historian. And I knew if I moved to communications, I get more opportunity to write and more opportunity for people to edit my writing. And so that's what I was interested in, is continuing to grow. And so then I went to and got a research job, and I got another pay bump because of that. And then it ended up being, that in that research position, or in that research job, it ended up turning into a more of a news job. And that was a decision the company decided, not me. And so then I had to learn news, but I love news. So I ended up learning that and learning how to write really, really quickly. I could write 3 articles in a day if I wanted to, maybe 4. One day I really felt like doing 4, but I was like, I've done 3. I'm pretty much done. And so you learn things as you go about it. And so I think internships, if you have a degree in history, because it has so many applicabilities, do you want to focus more on the history side, which would require a lot of internships in historic locations? Do you want like a preservation type degree that might require public history? So really be conscientious of what your end goals are and how you're going to achieve them. If you love history, but you don't think you really want a full-time job in history, because those are few and far between, then learn something about marketing and go and do an internship in marketing or something to that effect. Really work on your writing, really work on some maybe peripheral things like, how to do a podcast, how to do video. Like there's so many things, like even now in this job I have, I can go on and can do a lot of different things because I have now had this video side. I know a bit about audio and these sorts of things. And I've done that in other jobs as well. So history, if you're open to learning, you can 100% have a history degree and go on into different fields. You just do need to search out those internships in different fields and figure out what works best for you. That just wasn't as much of a thing in the early mid 2000s as it is now. Like now, like you're a freshman and you get an internship that first summer. When I was in college, you maybe got one your last year and that was it. Like there just weren't that. It wasn't emphasized quite as much, or at least in my program, it was not. So there's so many things you can learn, so many ways you can grow. You just have to be interested in it. You have to pursue it. You have to know what is going to be your end goal, and definitely try things. Like finding out I'm not good at archaeology was a good thing, because then I didn't try to pursue it again, because I'm like, I'm really not very good at this. And I really didn't think there would be that much dirt involved. I know, right? It's so dumb. But I did get to handle skeletons. I did get to look at a skeleton. I did get to see people re-articulate a skeleton. That was super cool. But the dirt part quite so much. So that's just to answer the question, because I think it's an important question. How do you take a degree that's kind of hard to find a job for, and how do you get a job? I hope maybe that helps people, because yes, be clear about your passions, but also be realistic in what job expectations you can have. And my parents were always trying to push me to do that. And I was just very bad at it. Wasn't thinking, loved history. Didn't know how to apply it. And it took me a little while. It wasn't until my later 20s that I finally figured out what I want to do with the rest of my life. Kind of, sort of. So take opportunities where you had them, move up, develop your skills, sharpen your skills in different areas, figure out what works for you. Like I have a talent in marketing, so I was able to kind of leverage that. And so I just really hope that anybody looking to a degree is able to kind of figure out ways to go in that direction. So anyways, that's a long explanation, but anyways, just wanted to share that. All right, DS, thank you so much for the super chat. Said, how did y'all like Meghan Markle's birthday tiara? Finally a tiara fit for a cosplay duchess. By the way, I like your cross necklace. Why, thank you. I love this too. It's like the perfect size for Anna Lucia. I just really do love it. I wore it for my grandma's funeral because I knew she would love it. But when it comes to Meghan Markle's birthday tiara, I thought that was hilarious. I just thought that was really, really funny. And so I did a video on that, kind of talking about it at the end. And it was just, it's just so cringy. Like the whole thing's so cringy. And like, yeah, she finally has a tiara that really does fit, and it's a fake one for the fake Duchess. You just can't make this stuff up. Like she just gives you the punchline, and I just don't even think she's in on the joke, and that's the funny part. So thank you so much, DS. We also have Tam saying, Sherry Frankie's book, The House My Mother Describes Growing Up Online Without Her or Her Siblings' Consent. Her mother's Ruby Frankie. Yes, it's a very real thing, and it's a very like some kids get to the end of being family vlogs and their adults are like, I didn't want my first, the first time I shaved my legs to be online or the first time I got my period. And those are topics of discussion on family vlogging. You got to just be so careful what you do. My cat's name is Karen says, I depend on people like you to report back to us. Thank you. You are welcome. Sharon Wright says, I think she said she puts a layer of jam in between 2 cookies. Yuck. I mean, a little bit yuck, but I would say it's less yucky with shortbread, which is actually what she does rather than Thin Mints. But do I really believe she utilizes Girl Scout shortbread cookies? And do I believe that that comment was just a reflection on her jam? Why, yes, I do. Ozzy 5050 says, I want to make blackberry jam tarts, but with Smuckers and some other grocery store jam. Not Hersal. No. Lauren says, Tam, I'd like to read that. Thanks for bringing it up. I'd forgotten about that. Ask Steele says, I wish I could afford to go on a trip. I'm such a history nerd. It's going to be awesome. It's like, the nice thing is they're so far out that if you wanted to budget it, it would be possible. So that is the nice part about doing them so far out in advance. It gives you an opportunity to figure it out. But I do understand that not everybody can go. And yeah, I love traveling. It's part of my love for history is why when I was given the opportunity to travel as a teenager, I wanted it so incredibly badly because I love to put my understanding of history and see it in person. Because again, it deepens your understanding of things. So like see a castle wall and how certain cities were protected by castle walls. It helps you understand, oh, I understand now why those walls were important, how they facilitated a function of keeping the city safe. Bobby Australia says, how much is the trip to Italy and London next fall? I think they're both, I want to say over 4,000. And so I don't determine really the cost. It's a company that determines that. And so I just let them set the cost as they deem fit. And so those are both we're looking at April. It's the 12th through the 19th or something. And then 14th through the 19th. So it might be less for the Italy one, 12th through the 17th or something. And 14th through the 19th of November for UK and April for Tuscany. Francisco says, I agree with you about the need to watch things to criticize it. There's a possibility that Meghan was part of something good. You don't want to be a hater. No. And again, the movie's cute in some ways, sure, but it just felt like there were portions missing. Again, I'll have the whole review tomorrow and talking about some other Meghan comments about things. My cat's name is Karen says, I'm seeing Halloween candy in the stores. I know it's so bad, isn't it? I'm like, so not ready for it. Oh, Annie says supermarket has Christmas gear in store already. That's too soon. Lauren says, I'd like to go kick off my new life. I should be divorced next spring, early spring. Okay. Well, it's both sad and congratulations that you feel like you have a new life. So wishing you all the best. Bobby says, are there grants or anything that can help pay for it? For the trips, no, they don't really have anything like that. And I would also say as well, like they'll sometimes ask me to do some more pushier sales things. And my thing with the trips are, if you want to go. But if it's something you can't afford, if it's going to stretch your budget, do not stretch your budget. It's not worth it in the end. You may find a cheaper route to go or something like that. And I don't want anybody to overextend themselves ever coming on a trip. So I always try to be really conscientious of like sharing what you can expect, but also not pushing like, oh, you can do it with a firm. I will never say that. I will never say that. If you decide to do it that way, that is your prerogative. But like, Trova's asked me to do that a time or two. I'm like, no, that's not what I do. If people want to go, they go. If they don't, they can't afford it. Be prudent with your money. I will always say that. Subak says history gives one a broader perspective on everything. It really does. Lauren says, I love history too. Love studying it. It's amazing. It's my favorite subject. Phoebe Purvis says, you cut your hair. It looks so pretty. Why, thank you. Yes, I did. I cut it last week, I think it was. Finally. Heather Cranford says, Brittany, you'd be a great interview. You ask tough questions. I do. And I really like them to answer the question, not interrupt them constantly. I am one person who, like, if I can really get into a real good conversation with someone, I will. But like, I am there to ask you questions and hear your responses and interact accordingly rather than just pushing a narrative. I really try not to push any sort of narratives. I just ask questions when I'm doing interviews. Ozzy says there's always the History Channel. I grew up watching A&E back when it had quality history docs. Yes, they used to do like a September 11th like series every year, and I always enjoyed that, but I don't think they've done that as much anymore. Princess Goose says, I got a degree in history because I wanted to go to law school. I felt that much of history has legal implications like Dred Scott or Brown versus Board of Education. Very true. That's another route I didn't think about, but I did consider. I actually did take the LSAT and didn't do very well. I don't do well in standardized tests, to be honest. But I got like a 92nd percentile or 93rd or something on the written GRE portion of the test because I can write. Lissa says, I did liberal arts. I wish I did some kind of history, though. It is awesome. Bobby says, I did college very late. I was 27 when I finished my BA. Never too late, I guess. No, it is not. As Steele says, I went on a footsteps of Paul trip before COVID. It was amazing how much of history is in Greece and Turkey. It is. It is. Very much so. Lauren says, I have a degree in history too. It's the best degree. My cat's name is Karen says, you should work for the FBI. I thought about like the CIA or something. I did definitely consider that. State Department. Lots of things. But I'm pretty happy where I landed, to be honest. Ozzy says, Brittany, you would be an excellent history professor. Why, thank you. There's a community college in my area, and they still have like a history teacher online or a history instructor. And like, there's a part of me that really wants to do it. But then I was like, I couldn't travel quite as much if I wanted to. And I'm like, I don't know. But it also sounds kind of cool. Daryl Key says, when you actually visit a place, it is different. I can still feel the heat of Spain and hear the Montana winds. Also remember the smell of heather and the mountains in Scotland. Yeah, it really does change your perspective. I think people miss out on how much the going to a place helps you. It really does. Bobby says, the job market changes all the time. I'm hoping once I finish my master's to work as an archivist, full hands-on with artifacts, but we'll see. That's so cool. That's so cool. Annie Marr says, Blaze channel has some excellent history programs on, but the best way is if you go onto your channel, catch up, and go to the history section. You'll find little gems there. That's so cool. That's awesome. Yeah, I need to do more history. That's what I want to do. But so much going on. I feel like even though we got back on Sunday, we got back at midnight on Sunday night. So technically Monday. From my grandma's funeral and service. And so I feel like this whole week has just kind of been a long series of catch up and not all of it done well. Zen Rebel Diary says, Tom Sykes has all the details. It's already been proven that the company that insured the case for the defendants are in the same building as Harry's lawyers, looking more like they colluded. Oh, that is bad. That is bad. And speaking of Tom Sykes, I think it's great that he actually went and saw Meghan's speech in Geneva. Because again, that's what journalists do, is go see things in person. You know, a lot of people who commentate have never seen a royal in person. And not everybody has the ability to travel. I totally understand. But I think if you're going to be in this space, this is why I travel so much, in part because I enjoy it, but part because I love being able to see and interact and be part of the royal system. Like I really feel like it helps so much. Kubrick says, it's not the first time Meghan Markle has age-shamed another woman who's more successful than her. Meghan calling Martha Stewart senile and confused is hard of hearing. Meghan remains a bully. Yeah, I mean, you could definitely read it that way. Aussie 5050 says, it is unfortunate in the way that Catherine's kids have to be in the spotlight, but they do. They are in the direct line of succession, and they are learning from the London age how to be royal public figures. Yes, like they just can't totally avoid it. They just can't totally avoid it. James says, thanks for sharing your story. It helps me better understand the ways you approach and deliver your ideas. I'm glad. I'm glad it helped. Heather said, I originally went for biology for medical purposes. I quickly realized I do not like to touch people, so I went with history instead. You still might touch people, but they might be dead people. So that's a little different. Bobby says, thanks for the honesty about the trips, Brittany. Much appreciated. Look forward to going on one of your trips in the future. Yes. Yes, always think about it in the background and think it through, and never do anything that's going to overextend you. Because then I always feel like that, because then somebody might not enjoy the trip because they're stressing about how much they spend on it. And if somebody wants to do that on if that's their choice fully on their own, yes, of course. But I never want to pressure somebody in that way where they feel like they can make that leap and then they live to regret it. It's just, I would love for you to come. Anybody who comes, I would love for you to come. You are welcome to come. It is totally up to you how you decide to come. Not going to push it any way or the other. As Steele says, a lot of universities need online adjunct professors. You can be part-time, Brittany, but only if you want to. I do want to. So we'll have to see. I do want to do. Sharon says, are you ever planning to go to Germany? So I did actually go to Germany and Austria with a group back in 2023. We had a fantastic time. Shout out to everybody who was on that trip. And I've just tried to do different things because I've had some people who've like attended basically every trip. And so I try to do some, because I want to see different things too. But if we get to a chance where we can go back through and do other things, that would be awesome. It's just kind of hard now with how long out the trips are. It's a bit weirder to promote it because it feels like they're overlapping in a weird way. I don't know. In real life, Creation says, I took PhD courses at Liberty, good school. My daughter starts college in 2 weeks. We've applied for 150 scholarships and we get picks of the winners. All have been people of color. It does leave a bad impression. It really does. It really does. It really does. It's just unfortunate. Sharon says, do you vet your fellow travelers? You can look and you can, reject somebody if you are aware of somebody. I've never done that. So that is a possibility, but like, do I look through and vet like the people? No. I figure if a Sussex squad person wants to pay like some money to come on a trip and they don't want to, like, that would just be weird. I mean, okay, whatever. We will still have a great time either way. You will be treated lovely. You may not enjoy every aspect of the discussions, but I hope you still have a fantastic time and get to see some cool history, because that's the point. T for Everyone says, we have a lot of scholars in the chat. Love that. Way to go. Princess Goose says, would you travel to Turkey? I would. Definitely. I would travel to Turkey, but I haven't had a chance to yet. I would like to see, what is the mountain? I'm blanking on the name, where the Ark may have landed. That I would like to see that. And they also have the Göbekli Temple there, which is the oldest human settlement or temple ever discovered. So that's kind of interesting. So anyways, lots to do. But guys, I have actually dinner planned. So we need to end our lovely discussion. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it. Cookie Queen's review coming tomorrow morning. I will also hopefully this time we're going for gonna cut up aspects of this and share it on RNN clips, just because I need to get back into doing that. Oh, Ararat. That's Mountains of Ararat. Yes, I do want to see that. So guys, thank you so much again. Have a wonderful, marvelous weekend wherever you are, and stay safe, and I shall see you again very soon. Bye.